Wow, what do you know? Another video from a mainly Destiny creator explaining why he doesn't enjoy Destiny anymore. I know this type of video has been very popular throughout YouTube over the past 6 months or so, but I just didn't want to up and leave a franchise that I've been so passionate about for about 10 years without saying my piece on it. I've never really made a video like this before on the channel, so I don't really foresee myself making this style of content in the future, just a heads up. I have some Remnant 2 footage playing in the background of this video. This is literally my first time playing this game, so please excuse the very subpar gameplay. I'm still an absolute noob at this game. Alright, where do I begin? Well, I should probably begin with how it all started, how I fell in love with this franchise, and how it impacted my life even to this day. So I got into Destiny around 2015, after The Taken King was out. I had not actually owned a copy of the game at this time, but went over to a friend's house and played his copy of Destiny on his Xbox 360. Middle school me had no concept of experiencing a shooter, let alone an online game before. That's right, Destiny was my first ever FPS game and online game at that. Playing Destiny for the first time at my friend's house hooked me right away. He had loaded me into a couple PvP games which I was terrible at. I didn't understand much of how the controls worked, but I remember all these specific details about getting a double kill using a rare blue Hake sidearm, and even the specific place I was on the map, which was Shores of Time, when I got those kills, specifically where B-Flag would be located. I remember then playing Exodus Blue and getting killed by a rocket launcher twice. These are really odd details from things that happened over 10 years ago by this point, but I still vaguely remember as that was my first impression that I ever got of Destiny. After playing at my friend's house, I was hooked on the game. The dopamine rush I got when finally securing one kill, even though I was terrible, felt really rewarding. My friend then showed me how to install the trial version of Destiny onto my Xbox. I played the shit out of this trial. I remember there being several campaign missions available, along with the Devil's Lair Strike, which I played religiously. I remember genuinely being terrified when encountering the Hive for the first time. My heart was racing, and I felt a sense of relief after completing each mission. I was probably around maybe 12 to 13 years old when playing these for the first time. The first Destiny to me had a huge sense of mystery to it. I would sometimes even see myself through my Warlock character exploring this forgotten universe that's filled with environmental storytelling and great music. I never kept up with the meta really during this time, so I honestly had very little idea with what was actually good in the game. I just used whatever I had and I made it work. It wasn't actually until late 2016 that I was actually allowed to get the game, which was around the time just after Destiny the Collection had came out. I remember my first exotic being the No Land Beyond and absolutely freaking out when I got it, as my friend had told me it was good. I remember my friend showed me this YouTuber called Mr. Fruit, and a bit in part of their YouTube videos was that the No Land Beyond, they would call it like the prehistoric stick or something. So I remember that dropping in No Land Beyond. I was like, I got it. I got the prehistoric stick. But those were simpler times. Only a couple weeks into getting the game, the same friend that introduced me to the game also introduced me to his clan that he was a member of. I swear it might have partially been because I was still very young at the time, but clans in Destiny 1 felt like they had some sort of aura to them. Like, the clan that I was joining legitimately had tryouts. I was still fairly bad at the game during this time, but to my astonishment, I still managed to make it in. It was crazy. It was like FaZe Clan. It was like joining FaZe Clan in the 2010s or something for me. Like, even though it was just like a regular Destiny clan, I remember feeling so accomplished, like I'd been accepted by a group of people when I made it in. And what's crazy about this clan is that there are still 2 people in this clan that I still speak to and play with to this day, 10 years later. This game had not only introduced me to the FPS genre itself, and the sci-fi genre, and the looter shooter genre, but it also introduced me to the first ever online friends I ever had. Destiny was the first ever online multiplayer experience that I had too. I had never even been in an Xbox party with strangers until I got this game. Now, the reason I'm bringing a lot of this up is because this game, this franchise, meant more to me than just a game. It actually became a lifestyle. Destiny had been my most played game for the past 10 years. Literally, every year from 2015 to 2024, I've spent more time playing Destiny than any other game. And that's even during a brief break I took around the 2020 to 2021 era. I believe I stopped playing around when Season of Arrivals came out, which was the season right before Beyond Light came out. Now, to be honest, my relationship with Destiny has always been complicated. I think a lot of players can relate. Even during Destiny 1, I knew the game wasn't perfect, but I still loved it for what it was. Even during the launch of Destiny 2 and Curse of Osiris that came after it, I still play the game almost every day with my friends and still enjoyed it. Which is crazy because that was one of the lowest documented times in terms of player count and community morale, besides, the past few months. I don't know if it was because I was still a young teenager at the time, or if I was just not burnt out of the franchise yet, but I still enjoyed playing Destiny during this time. Then the following year, Forsaken came out, and that expansion was huge and probably where the game peaked for me in terms of enjoyability. Forsaken, just looking back on it, added so much to the game. It introduced dungeons, it added Gambit, which at the time was really good. It added 9 new subclass trees. At the time, the biggest raid by far that Destiny has ever seen. It added 2 new destinations, a ton of new exotics, and I'm going to be forgetting more stuff, but there was so much stuff that Forsaken added. Just as an expansion, it expanded on so much of the game and made me so excited to play and find new things to unlock. Then the following year, Shadowkeep came out, and that's when I started to see a shift for me. Many of the original players in my clan that I had played with since Destiny 1 were starting to drop out of the game. And I mean, I don't blame them. Shadowkeep, in my opinion, was pretty awful. Like, almost everything about it. Terrible campaign. I think the destination was pretty unoriginal. It's just the moon from Destiny 1 with just like a new area in it. The raid was also super unfun, at least for me and my team. I don't even think the raid was actually made by Bungie. I think they had another party or something make the raid for them. And then they kind of were leaning heavily into that seasonal content and seasonal activities around this time as well. And I just remember the seasonal activity that came with Shadowkeep was also just really boring. The only thing I think I got out of that expansion was playing the dungeon, because I thought that encounter where the ogre chases you was really fun, playing that for the first time with my friends, not knowing where to go, just laughing my ass off with them. Like I mentioned before, I did take a break from the game, but still remained in the loop of Destiny and returned to the game right around Season of the Lost, which was a super long season right before Witch Queen came out because Witch Queen had gotten delayed. I remember hearing about the dreaded Content Vault, and that really made me start to look at Bungie in a different light after this. I didn't care that the game was too big to handle for another expansion. So the fact that they permanently removed old content with no refund to keep the game under a certain file size is still unforgivable to me. When has another game done this before? I can't think of a time. Imagine loading up Master Chief Collection and seeing that Halo Combat Evolved was just removed entirely to make room for Halo 5 or something. It's not the perfect analogy, but you get my point. That's content that people had paid for, and only a few years later completely ripped out of the game entirely just for the purpose of making new content. If that wasn't the clearest indication that this franchise needed a Destiny 3 when Destiny 2 was literally becoming too big, then I don't know what is. During this time, a couple of my online friends had hit me up, and were also talking about getting back into Destiny. We had a blast playing a lot of what the game had to offer and played a decent amount of the 30th anniversary event with the corresponding dungeon, Grasp of Avarice, which we played weekly. Then after that, the Witch Queen came out, and I really felt like I was in love with Destiny again. I was starting to play it a lot again, and that expansion really delivered for me. The campaign and story felt like a complete package and reminded me a little bit of the old Bungie Halo campaigns, just a little bit. I didn't feel like I was doing random side quests and just listening to dialogue and having a character exposition dumped to me through character dialogue. I feel like I was actually shown cutscenes with emotion. I was playing through missions that actually were designed to be replayed, and it wasn't just some, oh, go on this destination and do this public event here and then kill these enemies and pick up these materials here. I felt like I was actually involved with the story, and the campaign actually had me engaging with the level design and looking around. There were puzzles and stuff. There were great boss fights. And while the raid was broken on launch, it was still one of my favorite raids that Bungie has ever come out with, and the boss fight was unlike anything we've ever seen before. The weapons and armor looked great. I loved a lot of things about that raid. And this era of the game was good for me and my friends, as my roommate at the time and his friends were starting to get back into Destiny. And we would raid like almost every week. This was around Season of the Plunder, and this was a time where they added King's Fall into Destiny 2, and we played King's Fall like almost every week. I remember I got Touch of Malice, and then we did the Catalyst. Then came Lightfall, and just to be honest, Bungie really fumbled this, in my opinion. I'm not sure if this has been proven, but it's been theorized that if you take the first and last cutscene of Lightfall and stitch them together, that stitched together cutscene actually flows together and was supposed to be the original story/concept for their original plan for Lightfall before that was scrapped, probably to make room and time to work on the final shape. So they just had a filler story to fill in the gap during a time. I don't actually know if this is true, but it would not surprise me because those first and last cutscenes where all of the important characters are looking at the witness, like draw that triangle on the Traveler. You see that exact scene at the very beginning of Lightfall and at the very end. And it seems like everything that happens in between is just entirely filler and doesn't matter at all. And say what you want about Call of Duty for having annual releases that are usually slop made to sell copies, but in my opinion, Destiny's not any better when it comes to its annual expansions. Not only that, you have the annual expansions, but you also have a seasonal model built into the expansions too, which was like 4 seasons a year with their own paid Battle Pass tier. On top of that, we had a bunch of different in-game events. This is like Festival of the Lost, The Dawning. You had Crimson Days at one point. I think you had a spring event at one point. You have Guardian games, and you had some sort of summer event, pretty sure. There was a ton of those, and they each had their own in-game card, their event card, that was another paid tier to get more cosmetics. You also had random expansions like the 30th anniversary, which parts were free, but you also have to pay for things like the dungeon. And that reminds me, you also had separate dungeon keys. If you didn't get a premium or deluxe version of an annual expansion, you had to pay for the dungeon separately, which you had to pay for through a dungeon key. And all of this is wrapped up with a weekly rotating Eververse store, which saw consistent new cosmetics every time there was any one of these things I just mentioned. An annual expansion, a new season, a new in-game event. Everything had an Eververse update to it all the time. Even though in some of the other events we'd get, you'd always have the same exact copy and paste activity every year, but we would see constant refresh of new cosmetics and stuff being added into the store every year. And I could even double down on how bad the specific microtransaction costs are inside of Destiny, being 800 silver or 12 or 1300 silver for an item. And in the store, you could only spend money on 500 silver, 1000 silver, 1500 silver, which would each cost, $5, $10, $15. So you end up paying for way more silver than you actually want. And then that leaves you with some extra silver to then go into the store to see what you can spend it on. And then you realize that extra amount of silver isn't exactly enough silver you need for this next item. So then you just keep on going back into the store and spending way much more money on the actual silver you need for the individual item. So yeah, I'm sorry, this game has worse monetization than COD. I don't care. Now, during this time, I still play the game with very few friends that remained after the embarrassing launch of Lightfall. And the most embarrassing part about it is I believe that Lightfall still has the highest peak players that the game's ever seen. I'm pretty sure that on Steam, no other expansion has the same amount of peak players that Lightfall has. And I think a big reason because of that is because so many players heard about the positive reception that Witch Queen had. And after Lightfall had been marketed as this sort of penultimate expansion, this Avengers Infinity War of the Destiny sagas, old players were intrigued to return back to Destiny and see how this sort of 2-part ending wrapped up the franchise. And my god, the player numbers dwindled after that and definitely impacted the player numbers that Final Shape had, because people who had checked out that expansion lost their trust in Bungie and wanted to wait for the Final Shape to actually be released before they bought it. Literally, the Final Shape did not perform as well as Lightfall numerically, even though it was a way better expansion, because people had completely had their trust broken with how bad Lightfall was, and so people wanted to wait and see if the Final Shape was actually worth purchasing. So I went into the Final Shape with thoughts of, well, I made it this far into the franchise, better see how it ends. And honestly, the Final Shape was good. Granted, they had delayed the expansion like most other expansions and panicked a little bit because of the mediocre reception that players had when some of them were invited to play the expansion early. It's been speculated that Prismatic or even the new enemy faction might have not even been in the works since it wasn't in previous trailers, but since the delay then made its way into more recent trailers. Some people argue, well, why would Bungie hold on to this information? And others argue, well, they could have just been tweaking the final works of it and needed a little bit more time with it. Who really knows? But at the end of the day, we got pretty much a new subclass and an entirely new enemy faction. They gave us a satisfying ending to their beloved 10-year disaster that was Destiny. And to this point, I was still playing the game, still grinding. I had purchased the episodic content that was to come after the expansion and played that up until around the last episode. But at this point, I still had a couple friends that still play the game, and we did some Grandmasters and some dungeons every week, every other week. At this point, which was roughly about 7 months ago, I just decided to peacefully walk away from the game. I wasn't getting any joy from the game like I used to for years at that point, but I kind of dealt with it because there were certain aspects of the game that I really liked, like the builds and the social aspect of it, because I still had friends that play the game. All in all, enough was just enough, and I was ready to just be done, and I wasn't sure when I would return to the game. So while I was gone for a few weeks, I think it was Edge of Fate that was announced, which this confused me. Because at this point, this is like the third or fourth time that Bungie has doubled down on making more Destiny 2 content instead of working on a third game that it desperately needed years ago. For the first time in pretty much a decade, I wasn't in the slightest way intrigued, and on top of that, I heard they were reworking armor with some new stat distribution and perks, which meant I would have to grind for all brand new armor for all 3 of my characters, which had numerous different sets for different builds, and I was like, yeah, no, there's no way. There's no way that this smaller scale expansion is going to actually hash out enough content for it to be worth grinding all these new armor sets for. I walked away from the game because I just couldn't do it anymore. Ever since Shadowkeep, my passion for the game has had so many ups and downs, and I'm tired of going through the same loop every year, where we get super hyped for a new expansion or season, grind out all the content, then complain about how dead the game is, rinse and repeat. I find it so ironic how we as players complain and critique Bungie for recycling or rehashing old content, yet we willingly choose to relive our same roller coaster of emotions every year, get hyped for a new expansion, play the new content to the bone, and then complain about the game being dead. I could go on and on about my personal issues that I have with the game, but that would simply take way too long and would need its own video, which I just cannot be asked to do at this point. On top of that, franchise fatigue has hit me several times in the past few years, and I'm just so tired of pretending to care anymore. So after stepping away from the game around March/April of 2025, I never ended up coming back, never ended up buying Edge of Fate, and after seeing the community sentiment about that expansion and just how Bungie's been handling the game recently, I feel like I picked a good time to actually leave. Over the summer, I had returned to some Destiny 1 and restarted a character just for fun, made a few YouTube videos about that in a Let's Play style, but ultimately after beating the vanilla campaign, I think that my passion for even the first Destiny game was kind of dwindling too, and that I just wasn't going to play it anymore. And to be honest, I feel like the way I treat games in this day and age is very different to the way I treated games when I was younger. Nowadays, if I'm not enjoying a game, I just simply won't play it and I'll find something else to do. But back then, I think I had an unhealthy habit where it would kind of force myself to play Destiny even if I wasn't enjoying myself playing it. And I think that change in mentality has affected my motivation for even making things like YouTube videos too. I've only been making YouTube videos since 2021, and even during then, only some of my content was Destiny related, and those older videos anyway have since been privated, and now there's only more recent ones that I feel are up to a level of quality that I like, while still remaining very laid back and chill, almost like old school YouTube, as that's kind of the videos that I like to make. I want to make more YouTube videos, and I always have, but I'm just simply not enjoying myself playing Destiny anymore. And if I'm not enjoying myself playing something, then I'm not going to force myself to play it or make content out of it, simply for the sake of making content. I'm still a very small creator on this platform, but I truly only want to make videos when I want to make them and on games that I'm enjoying. And if other people want to watch, then that's great too, that's amazing. But I'm not going to let anyone other than myself dictate when I upload. I started this YouTube channel for no one other than myself and my own enjoyment, and that's how I always plan to treat it. So to anyone that's subscribed and is still watching this, I do apologize. I'm sorry for not uploading very often and for taking long breaks from uploading. If I'm not enjoying a game or not making a video on the game, then I'm simply not going to post. At the end of the day, I am a human being, I work a full-time job, I still love to play games in my free time. Recently, it's been really hard for me to find something that I enjoy playing and also making videos on, hence the lack of uploads. Recently, I've been playing some Remnant 2, and that's genuinely been fun, so I might actually start making just some casual videos on that in the future. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. As for Destiny, I'm not even sure if I would play a third Destiny game at this point if Bungie ever made one in the future. I honestly never thought these words were about to come out of my mouth, but I genuinely do not have faith or trust in Bungie anymore to deliver a tasteful game that is about art over profit. It sucks to see what corporations have done to the games industry, but that's just how things are now, for many games and franchises. With that being said, I'm still extremely thankful for all Destiny has done for me over the years. Those friends and memories will always have a lifelong lasting impact on who I am as a person today. And I can't be happy enough to be part of something that was so awesome and that lasted for about a decade. Guys, if you've made it this far, thank you. And if you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like and maybe even drop a comment. I really want to make more YouTube videos, always have. I'm sorry that I'm stepping away from Destiny content, and if you unsubscribe, I completely understand and I take no offense. I just need to move on from this franchise. Alright, that's about all I've got. And if you're still sticking around, expect to see a little Remnant content in the near future. Peace out.